Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. In this video is to bring you a closer look at the Pemko part number 145. This is an interlocking threshold is what this is. We don't sell these all the time or often, only because in the world of thresholds, interlocking is unfortunately actually not used as often as you will possibly be convinced by the end of this video that they should be used based on just simply how elegant they are in terms of what they do. The 145 is representative of this profile. Now the D in the part number stands for dark bronze, and this item is available in lots of different finishes. Okay, it's going to be available in the A finish for mill aluminum. It's just what aluminum looks like when it comes extruded from the mill. It's also available in the BDG, or bright dip gold, which would be a very shiny metallic looking gold finish that might complement a polished brass finish better. The next in the alphabet will be D for dark bronze anodized, which is what you see here. And that oily surface that you see is not uncommon. The factory will put some lubricant when they're prepping the holes or doing machining work to the aluminum threshold prior to shipping. So that's not unusual to see some of that. You do end up having to wipe it off. The factory does not provide that service, apparently. You're also going to get the G finish, which is a matte anodized aluminum gold finish. Then you can have the PW for painted white, and then finally the SN for satin nickel. Those are the different finishes. Now, interlocking threshold. This is a two-piece designed system where you're going to have the weather strip, the threshold itself, and you're going to have the hook strip, which is here. We call it a JHook. You can call it anything you like, but you can see why we would call it a JHook. Okay. This hook is to be attached to the bottom of the door, and when the door is in the closed position, it will interlock with the bottom of the threshold, just like you see. And proper operation would have it where the door opens, the door closes, and locks right to that lip. Now certainly you could, and I have seen it installed, you could install it in the outside application as well. I have seen interlocking thresholds installed where the door swung out and it swung out this way. That would certainly work with this model as well. Okay, but in swing is where you're really going to see residential doors, although this was installed in an exterior commercial application, those outswings. Can be installed any way you like, provided it serves your purpose and solves your problem. Why is an interlock such a great idea? The reason is because it makes that significant mechanical lock barrier between the door and the threshold, and as a result is extremely effective at retarding the transmission of wind, of rain, of moisture, of anything, a critter. I get calls from people in Arizona all the time and say, I don't care about nothing. What you got to help me stop are those scorpions from getting in. And that's a real scenario that you have to contend with. An interlock would certainly be incredibly elegant at helping prevent things from getting in under the door, insects, etc. Now, there are lots of different interlocks in the world, and really how they differ primarily is in the width and of course the height, perhaps the base material of what they're made of. All of the finishes I mentioned earlier are in the aluminum base material, but Pemko also offers this in the in the solid architectural bronze, or sometimes known as brass base material as well, onto which you can do a mill finish, which would be standard, a satin brass finish, which would be like a 606 finish, 605 finish, which would be polished brass, and that would have a lacquer on it, and then finally an oil-rubbed bronze finish, which we would know as 613, and again, that'd be made of solid architectural bronze. Commonly referred to as brass, generally about a factor of several 100% more expensive than an aluminum base material. Okay, now, back to what we were discussing earlier, and that being the lock that they make, and then the dimensional properties. Heights will vary, widths will vary, and there's lots of different profiles that will suit the conditions. The 145 profile happens to be a very common 4-inch wide and then 7/8 tall. the confluence of those two dimensions are really common. If you're finding this threshold, it's probably not by coincidence that you found it, because it's ubiquitous. You'll see this installed all over all over. What is common against all interlocks are, of course, the two-piece system where you'll have something attached to the door, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. But also, depending on the height of the threshold, a water return system. Here's what I mean. If you notice down in the trough, you'll see that hole that's right at the tip of my finger. There is actually a hole drilled. There's actually two of them in this threshold drilled, so that should any water get inside this door and fall into the trough, it'll hopefully pool and collect to that hole, run underneath the threshold, then exit out the front via the weep holes that are here. A little notch that's been done with a file. And again, there are two of them. Right here, here, and then over here. Weep holes, notch right in the face of the threshold. As a result of this weep hole system, where there's moisture that's going to be literally intended to come down under the threshold, should it ever occur, and then out, there's an option for a water pan. That's basically a piece of aluminum or brass base material, sheet metal, very thin, but it's intended to go down on to make contact, buffering between the threshold and the sill, whatever it is, stone or wood. And if there's any chance that there'll be moisture, you want the water pan. The aluminum water pan, if you're doing an aluminum product, is so inexpensive that I would suggest that you buy it just for the sake of making a decision during the installation process whether you'll install it or not. Don't mix aluminum and brass. Technically, disparate metals do not behave together, especially in the presence of certain things, sometimes like water. So if it's a brass threshold you're buying, order the brass drip caps, water pans as well. Now, the two-piece system we talked about, I'm going to put the threshold down, and the JHook, this gets nailed to the bottom of the door generally. You can nail it to the bottom of a flat door, or you can notch the door itself to account for the installation. So you can install it, and I'm just going to quickly make a couple of drawings. Oh, that's wrong. So you can attach it this way, where it's just nailed to the bottom of the door, and then of course it's going to lock to your threshold. Or you could notch the bottom of the door so that it would look like this. I drew them in opposite hands, it just doesn't really matter. This is not uncommon to see it this way. The reason you would want it that way is because what you're going to do is allow a little bit more of the door to hang down and cover up more of the threshold, so that you're not seeing, at least a 1-inch undercut from the threshold to the underside of the door. You've got to account for not only installing the galvanized, this is white coat galvanized, by the way, it's steel, but it is galvanized, material under the door, and then of course the margin between the door and frame. So you can notch it so you can get that door to hang down just a little bit further. You could probably increase that or make that look a little bit better by a whole 1/4 inch. That door would be able to come down pretty close to the top of the berm that's here, assuming your door swings in. So consider that as well. Regarding J-hooks, there are also L-hooks, and it will literally just mount to the inside face of the door, and is used not very commonly, but is occasionally used as a method, and I'll illustrate it quickly here. And just quite crudely, the L will go on the inside face of the door here, okay, and just connect. It surface mounts on the face of the door, and then connects to the underside of the threshold that's there, okay. So those are your two options in terms of J-hooks. You can purchase the L-hook separately, but you do not need to specify a hook with any interlocking threshold, actually, because they are always included. The J-hook style will always be included. Now, you're always going to get nails for the installation. You are always going to get screws for screwing it down. These thresholds, and all thresholds by Pemko are available on the site in lots of different lengths. Everything from 2 foot to 8 foot is generally available. If you have need for a custom length, by all means let us know by ordering the next longest piece or pieces and simply indicate in the comment field what length you'd like for us to cut the material back to. Now the reasoning is this. If you had to take this 3 foot piece and cut it down to, say, 28 inch, you'd eliminate that countersink. You might get in trouble with where a weep hole has been drilled, okay, and the notch in the face. Your centers would not be accurate. You'd be stuck drilling multiple new holes and having to then cut the material to length. That's okay if you have no problem doing that. Keep in mind, though, if you were to order the next longest piece or pieces and indicate in the comment field the net length you'd like for us to cut the material back to, we will not only supply it at the proper length, we'll supply it with the first countersink at the proper distance from the edge, and of course the proper center to center as well. The weep hole drilled on the trough side in the correct place, and then of course up in the front, the notch in the face of it will be there as well. Not only that, but you'll get your piece of steel trimmed to the right length as well. I don't know you'd want to try to use aviation snips on that. You'd tear that up pretty well. And it's fairly thick material, so the factory's cutting this on a small metal cutting saw is how they're cutting this. So my suggestion, let the factory cut it, and then you'll be in great shape. Feel free to indicate in the comment field the actual net length you want it to be shipped out at, and that's how we'll order it from the factory, and that's how we'll have them ship it out for you. Now, finally, the balance of the information below this video does give a link to a document called Installation Instructions, where you can see all of that regular routine sort of material. And if you have a need for other interlocking thresholds, those can be reviewed and researched. There's a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the Pemko products that we sell, but a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the manufacturer's full product catalog. So if you have any questions on the Pemko 145 interlock threshold, you can pull up, or you want to see the other ones, pull up the full product catalog and you'll be able to see all of the interlocks that they have there. What I like to do is do a find function on the keyboard and then use as the search term the word interconnected. That will get you, or interlocking. Forgive me, not interconnected, I was thinking of locks. Type in interlocking and that will get you quickly enough to the entire section of interlocking thresholds. I'm partial to Pemko. It's because they've got a good quality product at a very fair price. Excellent customer service and technical support. It's a perfect combination. If you have any questions on the Pemko 145D, dark bronze interlocking threshold, or any other Pemko product, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.